This is my first time after 4 years finally doing a video with my college roommates. Alright, y'all can come in. Hi guys, it's Katie and Jonna and Eleanor. Today we're gonna deep dive into roommates and how we survived 3 years together. So we roomed sophomore, junior, and senior year of college at Cornell. How we'll approach this is we'll start with an introduction of how we met and then dive into the housing process. So how did we choose where we ended up living, what house rules did we set, and any conflicts or tea or beef that we went through and how we resolved it. One last thing before we start the video is to shout out our other roommates. We actually have 2 other roommates, Sam and Angelin, so we're sending them love. Let's dive in. Okay, so let's start with intros.
I was pre-med like all 4 years. I majored in biology and society. I'm taking a couple of gap years before applying to med school. So I felt like I needed more time in between schooling and I just wanted some life experience.
Hello, I'm Eleanor. It's my 5th year at Cornell. So I spent 3 years undergrad and I majored in math and computer science. And then now I'm doing a 2-year master's program that focuses on teaching and research, and this is in computer science, so I dropped the math because it was really hard.
And I studied information science. I work full-time on a nonprofit that I started with my friend Imogen and make YouTube videos. How did we all meet?
Oh.
Well, I met you at CSA.
Oh my god! Wait. CSA or
No.
CES?
I was gonna say, I think Eleanor has faulty memory.
Yes, because I remember, that's like Chinese Bible study, by the way. And then I saw you at a CSA party and I was like,
yeah, that's right. And then I guess, well, we actually met into the streets, but I didn't really talk to you then.
Oh my gosh, right, I was kind of intimidated by
Oh, okay.
It's like a service event.
I don't know if Cornell still does it, but it's basically like a huge service day. So a bunch of like students do it. That's where we met. But I think also maybe just like fellowship hopping.
Yeah, that was the main one.
But we didn't really know each other before we decided to room together. Okay, so I guess like the other 4 of us, we kind of became friends through the fellowship we joined, which was like Asian American University. The housing for sophomore year, we wanted a 5th person because it's 5 and we just didn't want like a random person that could go wrong. Or it's like better to choose someone we kind of knew. And we all kind of knew Katie. We're like, oh wait, we think she would be a perfect fit.
I literally was so grateful that I got to join you guys because I was thinking of rooming with some other people, but then I really wanted people who were also Christian and to be able to have that and to come home to that space.
And then the 3 of them, like Eleanor, Sam, and Angelin, all lived like...
Oh, we all lived in the same college dorm, like on the same floor.
Oh.
And Angelin was actually my roommate, so...
Yes!
And that was on Facebook.
Yeah, wait, how did you meet your first year roommate?
Okay, so Angelin posted, and I didn't want to just do random because I don't want to throw it all to chance. So I read her profile and I was like, oh, I think we might be a good fit. So I was like, hey, do you want to be my roommate? It was like kind of scary because like I was like, she could very well say no because she was obviously talking to other people. So it was a little bit like dating because like
we rejected.
Yeah, you kind of find a match. Oh yeah, another thing.
Ooh.
When we say Facebook, there's like special Facebook groups created for these like incoming classes to like whatever college. Like there was one for the UCs and then also Cornell, obviously. So it's not just like some like random posting. It's like very specific to finding roommates, especially within your own class.
Oh, and then I didn't have a roommate. I knew going to college I wanted a single and that I could find my friends outside of being a roommates and stuff. So I was just like, I want my own space, yeah.
I also met my roommate online through a mutual friend though, so kind of crazy, but my school had this like sports league with a bunch of other countries in Southeast Asia, and my opponent for badminton, she introduced me to my roommate because they were best friends. They were both from Indonesia. We're both Christian, we're both like from Southeast Asia, like navigating a whole new country. It was like, it was perfect too. How did we decide to be roommates for so long?
Oh yeah, it's just 3 years. I feel like it just kept working out.
I don't want to say like it was out of convenience.
I was gonna say also we're lazy.
Lazy, like it's so much work to find a new roommate and see if it works out, get to know them, get to know their living habits and everything. So it was just like there was nothing majorly upsetting about the combination. So we just stuck with it.
Yeah, fact.
But we also like each other.
As a side note, you are amicable. Now let's talk a little bit more about the actual housing process. So how did we choose choose our houses and apartments. And we can do this by year.
Okay, so freshman year is like randomly assigned. So
Right, whatever.
that's like whatever.
Sophomore year, like we also blocked first, so we agreed that all 5 of us wanted to go into this together, and then we entered the lottery. And there were literally 3 days that you could have gone assigned, and we were so lucky that we got like the first day, second time slot. I'm like, what, 30? So we got to just choose literally our first choice dorm on our first choice floor, which is like the second floor.
That was Han's beta house, by the way.
Shout out!
Right. Apartment 251. Okay, junior year. I think we were all really busy, so we didn't really want to put too much time into apartment searching. So we knew some friends who were graduating, and they had told us they would be willing to pass down the apartment so that we could keep the rent. And it was relatively cheap, so obviously like all of us were swayed by that. So we like visited one time, and
I think we're like 5 seconds.
yeah, we visited for 5 seconds and like basically signed like a suboptimal apartment. It's better to not like just like trust your friends blindly. Like open your eyes.
Senior year.
Oh, senior year was college on court.
Yeah, College Town Court, one factor for why we wanted to move to College Town Court is they had just all singles. So then we were in a 5-bedroom, 1 bathroom.
We've always had 1 bathroom. Yeah, I feel like College Town Court, like it was reasonable price, clean. We all had singles.
Oh, we should also talk about how do we decide rooms starting like sophomore year. Oh, sophomore year we had 3 singles, right?
3 singles, 1 double.
The whole time I always had a single. I told you guys that, you know, I would be filming a lot of videos. And thankfully all of you just understood and were super like accommodating.
Yeah, I feel like for all of us, we're always like, okay, Katie will definitely get a single, so she has like space to film and like talk and like do whatever. And then I think our priorities were different and that like it worked out. So like Angelin and I prioritized having a single and we didn't mind paying more. Whereas like Sam and Eleanor, their priority was paying less.
And we prorated it also. I think the process of how we prorated stuff was interesting.
Oh, you did like the algorithm?
Yeah.
CS nerd.
Yeah, I wrote a program. I like asked people how much they valued, like Katie's room had an extra window, so I was like, how much more do you value like a window versus more floor space? And then basically compiled all of the benefits of each room and weighed it according to what people thought their values were. But obviously you don't have to do it like that.
Yeah, I feel like it's just because we have like a really try-hard CS. You're joking.
It was really good though.
But yeah, it was actually worked out.
Now apartment rules. What apartment rules did we set and how did we come to them? Guests, curfew, chores.
I guess it's kind of like varied throughout the years. In freshman and sophomore year, like the general rule was that the guests would need to be out of the house by midnight. And that was just because like we all wanted to set like a hard deadline for when everyone had to be out. But during like junior and senior years, we were a little bit more flexible. As long as it was quiet and wasn't disrupting people who were sleeping or like needed quiet time to do whatever, most people were okay with it. And they would just like come out of the room and be like, get out.
We also, I think, agreed like we weren't trying to be a party house. We're just like, if you guys want to hang out and socialize, like go do that at other people's places.
Yeah.
The most we did was senior year, a surprise party.
It was like 20.
Yeah, 20 people.
Other rules like cleaning, I feel like we kind of just had a meeting and talked about it. So junior year, each person has a chore that they do like over and over. But then senior year, we decided to do like a rotating thing. So we made like a spreadsheet and there was like a check mark by each name and like each chore. So kitchen, bathroom, trash recycling, vacuuming, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I guess the reason for rotation was because we felt like it was not fair to certain people to have to do the same thing over and over again. For example, like she was trash, so she had to take trash. Oh, sorry. Like she was responsible for taking out the trash. She had to take out the trash every 3 days, but like that was very visible, right? So the second she like didn't do it immediately, like people would get annoyed and like it wasn't their duty, so they wouldn't take the trash out. Whereas like for someone else whose duty might have been vacuuming, like people are not on the floor looking for dust, so even if they skip it, no one will notice.
In general, like we tried to keep the space clean. If the kitchen was a mess, but maybe the person responsible wasn't there to do it, like I would just like wipe it down.
Yeah. Also like clean up after your own mess. The chores are not be like, okay, they're in charge of the kitchen, so I can just shut it up. And, like, but there's like maintenance that like you have to do every once in a while. That's like just extra cleaning, and that's what those chores were. But like, what if like someone didn't do their chores? Right? Like,
okay, yeah, let's talk about that.
I think it's really important to just like be able to ask your roommate to be like, hey, you're in charge of doing this. I see that it's gotten a little bit dirty. Would you mind like cleaning it when you have time? And like that's very normal amongst us, and like no one kind of like takes it personally or anything. So I think having that relationship is really important.
Yeah, we would usually just like shoot each other a text and be like, hey, trash is looking kind of full. Can you please take it out?
Okay, let's talk about conflict since we're on the topic. What do you think was like the hardest part about being roommates?
I think it was like difference in living standard, which I didn't realize when we first started rooming, but like some people are more like okay with, for example, mess or sound or just certain things in your living space, whereas some people are super particular about these things. So what's okay to someone might be very not okay to someone else, and that was something to like recognize very early on so that you can make accommodations.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing you learn is like to be flexible and pick your battles. Like if something is like actually bothering you, like obviously like tell that person and like be clear about that. But if it's like really not a big deal, just kind of like let it go.
One big thing is you learn to like let go and like forgive without even like demanding justice or anything. Yeah, I think it's really important to have like mercy for your roommates.
I love that because I think I also learned like if someone doesn't do something, especially out of I guess character, learning not to take that personally and rather making it about them, looking like, oh, is there something going on in their life maybe that's causing them to, you know, like slack off on chores because, I don't know, maybe they have something going on in their lives, maybe they have a prelim or something is coming up. So it's reframing the conversation to be like, hey, like what's going on in your life, and looking at not doing chores is more a symptom of that.
Yeah, I think it's also important. It doesn't have to be like equal all the time. For example, if someone's going through a hard time, like obviously the other four can take up the burden of their chore. Like it's not the biggest deal in the world.
There was a time where I got COVID traced, or like I think COVID was a pretty good example.
Oh yeah.
Of this, right? Like in my case, I know when I was isolating in my room, different like roommates, like y'all would like check in on me, you guys would bring me food, and like I would just text you guys like, oh, could you help me make this or get this, and people were just so willing to, I think, extend that.
Eleanor and I got COVID. Shout out to Sam especially. She like cooked all our meals and like brought it. Yeah, have grace. Obviously if you're friends, like I feel like having love for each other and grace is like somewhat natural. I think the nice thing about being roommates for 3 years and also being friends is like you become so comfortable with them. And also the nice thing about living with friends is like if you want to go do something, you really just like knock on their door or like be like, hey.
Yeah, you have automatic like go-to people. It's like, hey, I want dessert, let's go.
Okay, now for like just general roommate advice, how would you define a good roommate and look for that?
Considerate is the first thing. I could care less about like what they actually do, as long as like they are not all about themselves or like their actions don't purposely or maybe unintentionally harm other people.
And then also I think a good communicator, someone who is able, if something's bothering them, to tell you instead of just like letting it stew. Setting clear expectations at the start also, like what do you guys want in a roommate and what kind of roommate are you is really important. Like we talked a lot at the start about what our living styles were like. I think it's a lot of self-awareness on like the parties involved and then the ability to communicate that honestly and upfront. I know that I look at home as a place to like rejuvenate, to like recharge, and that's the source I guess from which I'm able to like go out, and I really valued being able to share space with you guys, knowing you guys are also Christian, and that is like for me the #1 thing that rejuvenates me. So literally like it was such a blessing to be able to, you know, have 4 other girls who were exactly that.
Yeah, but everyone's definition of a good roommate is different. Like some people might want like someone who like doesn't talk to them, doesn't interact, just coexist. I think we wanted more of like interaction, a deep relationship, but other people, they can find those like outside their home.
Before we finish the video, one of our roommates, Sam, wanted to add something. She couldn't be here, but she wanted to say it really is such a blessing to have had roommates that I could share life with and grow together with, who I look forward to coming home to, and who spoke truth into my life when I needed it the most.
Aww, Sam!
On that note, that is the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it helpful. Thank you guys for
Of course!
Subscribe for more upcoming videos in this series. It's a new series I'm starting called My Cornell Degree, where I try to deep dive into every aspect of college I can think of and how that changes across the 4 years of college. Share this video with your friends who are looking for roommates, who are looking for housing, and anyone you think this would be helpful with, give this video a thumbs up, comment down below if you have any other requests for this series. I upload new videos every Saturday, so I will see you then. But in the meantime, make sure to check out my other videos that I do about life in college. But until then, hope you guys take care. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Bye.
Whatever.